Hey guys, Toolman Tim here. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. Back for another edition of the workshop podcast. And as you guys know, right now while you're watching this, I'm either en route or across the continent visiting some family for some medical stuff. And I didn't want to leave you without any content. So I thought I would sit down and do some pre recordings of some of these episodes for you, just touching on some different principles of preparedness that have worked really well for me. And this week, we're going to talk about finding success in setting up systems, or another way I'd like to put it, set it and forget it. But real quick, before we dive in, if you want to know more about who I am, go by toolmantim.co. That's toolmantim.co. And you can find my monthly newsletter, my social media links, and the shop where I've got over 100 products with a lot more coming soon. Stuff that I have used and abused, stuff that's made me money or saved me money in my handyman business. Ton of different categories. We got hand tools, we got power tools, landscaping gear, recording technology, and of course, my favorite category, preparedness items. And anything you pick up over there, or even if you just start your shopping there and buy something else from Amazon, a small commission will go back to the channel and help support the content I create. So thank you guys. Okay, so this week I wanted to talk to you guys about setting up systems and how I've used systems to my advantage over the last few years in being able to, put a lot of work in upfront and get a return continuously over time. So, you guys have heard me. I like to share with you some of my personal mantras or my preparedness rules to live by. And, setting up systems or setting it and forgetting it has always been one that I have, or at least I shouldn't say always, but probably over the last half decade to decade is something that I have used fairly effectively to be able to get more shit done in the same amount of time while still working a whole lot less, to be honest. So there's two ways to manage products, to set up systems, to start an entrepreneurial venture even. And the first one is, kind of typical. You're like, well, I want to have chickens or I want to have whatever. And so you end up needing to put in quite a bit of work every single week to get a fairly predictable return, So you want to grow well. There's a lot of systems that work really well, but the first way, of course, is put a lot of work into it on a weekly basis and get kind of a regular return. And a lot of systems are like that, like cooking your own meals all the time. So one way of doing it would be every single night going home and cooking an entire meal. And most people do that. But again, that takes a lot of time, maybe an hour every single night. Now, an example of setting up a system would be, spending say 4 hours on a Saturday doing bulk preparation for the entire week and having 7 high quality suppers all cooked, all ready for you, so that for the rest of the week, you don't need to invest barely any time, maybe 10 minutes heating it up and then eating it. So that to me, that is a much more effective use of your time. And for my personality, it works a lot better. So the second way, like I said, first way is ongoing work, work in, results out, about the same, and you're eating into your weekly time all the time. The other way is, putting in a lot of maintenance up front, or sorry, a lot of time, energy, and work in investment up front to set up a system that requires almost no work down the road. So one example for me would be my vermiculture, vermicompost bins. I had to learn how to build them. I had to set them up. I had to prep my worms for it. But once they were in there, once a month, I give them a few scraps, or, once every couple of weeks, I give them scraps, and they're just there all the time. There's literally no work left to it, but there's a fair bit of work up front. So, setting up systems that continue to work for you. For me, I'm a big fan of spending that upfront time and just, not throwing the time away, but taking the time to invest in setting something up and then letting it run. So the reason that I've come across this so much is that I have a weird personality. I get bored with stuff. I lose interest. I need to basically be able to set something up and let it run, or I'm just going to stop doing it. And that's just the way I am. And for a long time, I thought there was something wrong with me because I would constantly get interested in a new hobby and I would learn the hell out of it for a month or 2 months, try to become an expert, just absolutely learn everything there was to know. Like, for instance, 3D printing, sewing, knitting, Rubik's Cubes. I would literally spend, every waking minute thinking about a certain topic, learning about a certain topic, mastering a certain topic, and then drop it like a damn bad habit. Now, if it's just a random kind of skill or hobby, well, there's a lot of money to be lost there. You can spend a lot of money on a 3D printer, which, will I get back into it? I might, but I spent a lot of time up front using it, some money getting invested, a lot of money getting invested in it. And then I just stopped using it. I always use the excuse that, well, it's summer, I'm busy and I'll get back to it in the winter. But honestly, what happens with me is I have this like excitement in my brain to learn something new. And then once I've learned 80 to 90% of that system, I'm ready to move on. So, for me, if it's something that needs constant attention, I'm eventually going to get bored and I'm going to drop it like a bad habit. So I needed to hack my brain. I needed to tap into that unlimited energy I would get in the, and this, I don't want to sound too esoteric here, but that unlimited energy I'd get in the honeymoon period of learning something new. And I started realizing, hey, if I spend all of that upfront, exciting time learning a new skill, but putting it into something that will continue to work for me after I'm bored with it and don't really want to touch it a whole lot anymore, then to me, that is a way better use of my time because, like I said, I wasted a lot of time, money, and energy on a lot of things over a lot of years. I think back, and one was ham radio. Now, I still have all that gear, but it's been so long, I would need to haul it all out and learn how to use it again. I spent a lot of time learning it, and then I kind of just walked away from it. Sewing was the same thing. I bought a couple of sewing machines, taught myself how to sew, bought myself all the bobbins and ribbons and thread that I needed, needles I needed, backup light bulbs, tables. I learned all the skills and then I just haven't used it anymore. And you guys might be sitting there judging and thinking, well, but I can't help it. That is what my personality is. So, and I always justified it as, well, I'm learning a skill, and that's good. But the problem is that it was also costing me a lot of money because I would spend a bunch of money getting invested in a new hobby. So I had to do what I said, the brain hack. I had to learn to invest my energy and time and money into things that would continue to bring returns. So for me, I'll give you a few examples of what has worked for me. I already talked to you about worm bins, vermicompost, but a couple years ago when the first lockdowns happened, I started looking around everywhere looking for worms. Nobody would ship them. It was March at that time. It was too cold anyway, but everybody was in lockdown. Nobody was shipping any product. I couldn't get a hold of them if I wanted to, but I talked to my kid's teacher at the time and they had worms and she was willing to give me a few. So we managed to get a few. I watched a ton of videos. It really wasn't that hard, but at the time, it was the brain running. And I learned how to build a bin. I learned how to keep care of the worms. I learned how to feed them, learned how to extract the soil. And there is almost nothing that is more set it and forget it and forgiving than a worm bin. There's been times when I've gone a couple of months without feeding the damn things and they're just there. They just keep recycling the dirt and they'll be more alive or less alive, but they're always in there. And it's a way for us to get rid of some of our compost and to make some soil and to have a really neat project on the go. And, in other instances in the past, I've turned it into where I've just been interested in something and then I've dropped it. But with the vermicompost, once it's set up, it practically runs itself. Now here's another one. Next one, solar power. Again, I love to learn everything there is about a system. And, if that system was, I don't know, like a high-end movie projector or something, and then I got bored of watching movies, well, that would have been a lot of money spent on something that gave me literally no return eventually. Well, solar energy all started when I did an Ask Me Anything session over on Float. And they said, hey, can you answer prepper questions? I said, well, frig, yeah, that's right up my alley. And I thought, well, I'm a quote unquote expert, even though I don't like that term, but they wanted me to answer some questions. And so the first two questions I got were on a topic that I knew less than zero about, and that was solar. And of course, there's nothing that motivates me more than being asked a question on something that I don't know. Now, first off, I will tell people if I don't know. That's important to me because I'm not going to bullshit you and make up some crap and tell you, well, this is right or this is wrong. So as soon as I finished up with that AMA session over on Float, I said, I've got to learn. So the first thing I did was get Chicken Hawk on the show. He had a really good knowledge of solar power. So he was able to share with the community what he knew. I was able to learn from him. And then I started researching and watching videos. And then I bought myself some batteries and a solar kit. And I've learned how to hook it all up. And I've turned that into some videos. It's probably going to be like a 3-part video series as I go along about the beginnings and the absolute basics of solar power. So I've been able to keep my brain interested and motivated and learning something new. However, the best part about this is I now have a fully functioning solar system that I haven't had to touch in a couple of weeks that will run my entire shop if I choose to. Everything's set up out there now. I have a 4-battery battery bank, 200-watt solar panels. And when I make sure there's no snow on the panels, they just keep making power. And if it's full, it just keeps holding power. And that's really all there is to it. It's one of the best examples I can give of spending time, energy, and income up front so that the return continuously comes. Like, there's no better example of setting up a system than setting up a solar system. I'm going to probably upgrade and add a little wind turbine too, because I'm a geek and I like to learn that kind of stuff. But once the money's spent, once the time's invested, solar is basically free energy. It just sits there creating power that you can tap into at any time, that you literally have to do almost no maintenance to, and there's no work involved. Another one for me has been product review videos. Now, this is where content creation can come in. So I have a system set up where I create 5 pieces of content a week. I know how much time it's going to take. It's, I have a certain amount of time that I'm comfortable investing in this business every single week. And I do 2 product review videos every week because those are my best return on my investment at the moment. They're the ones that keep making me money long after they're made. Some videos like podcast videos and current content and things like that, they get the views up front and then they just flatline, and that's okay because I love to share my knowledge and teach. But my product review videos are a set it and forget it. I make a nice review on, say, what's a good one, for example? How about my DeWalt folding miter saw stand? Now, it was something I would have bought anyway. So the money doesn't really matter because I needed it for my business. I wanted to do a video for everyone. So I did a video, and now every 2 days that video gets 40 or 50 views. And, so what's that? Every month and a half, it gets 1,000 views, and it just keeps bringing me in income. And I spend the same amount of time every month, every week, making those 5 pieces of content, but I am building more and more and more an online catalog of videos and content that continuously bring in a larger and larger amount of income. So to me, that is a system. It's a small amount of work on a regular basis that gives me an increasing returning income. So, that kind of thing, if you can find something that continuously brings in income based on the same amount of work, but your income goes up, that to me is a system that you've set and forget. Another good example was my podcast. So originally my podcast came up as it was just an audio format or an audio version of all of my video content. And I knew that it should be fairly simple to strip all the audio out of my videos, turn it into a podcast, and upload it. However, all of that took time originally. So I had to find first a host. That was Anchor, which I love. They're free. They work great. They've worked good for me. I had to find an app to strip the audio out of each audio or each video file. I needed to find an app that would combine all those audio files. And I found all that. I needed to have a system in place. And, it was probably a solid 2 or 3 days work to get the entire system down. But at that point, I could create my weekly podcast in about 10 minutes every week. So then I had a system where once I invested that time up front, going forward, it was just bare bones maintenance to keep putting out a new piece of content that was a way to repurpose my old content and grab a new audience who didn't have an hour and a half to 2 hours to sit down and watch video all the time. So that was yet another one. My generator backup system, that's another system that works great. So I needed to set up, I took the time, the money, the energy in setting up, an exterior outlet, a new breaker in my panel, testing it all out, hooking up to natural gas. So now I have a basic off-grid system to run my entire home when the power's out. It took a lot of energy, a lot of drive, and really exciting to learn as I went, but now it's a set it and forget it. All I have to do is if the power goes out at this point, it's just roll my generator out, hook it up, and turn it on. But I had to invest that time up front to have a backup power system that really needs almost no work. A little bit of regular ongoing maintenance with my generator. Other than that, that is it. How about property management? So this is a little bit of a different one, but it is true. Property management is one of those things, it takes a lot of work to build up a business, to build up a portfolio of clientele for property management. It absolutely does. I had to find a lot of different customers, but now I have it set up so that, each property makes me X amount of money, whether I have to do anything or I don't. Now, there are times when it's really busy and we have to find new tenants and we have to deal with some emergencies. But for the most part, it is a really good system where, it's just a little bit of work every month for a pretty decent income. There's other months where it comes and it goes, but I had to invest a lot of time and had to have a lot of drive to go out and find a lot of those property management customers so that now I've got a really good setup of recurring income that requires some work, but not nearly the amount of work that it takes to get it all set up. So, what are some ways that you guys use systems? To me, it's just a mantra. It's a way of life for me. It's what I need to do in order to make my brain function properly. I'm always hot and horny to learn the latest skill, the latest, I want to get the latest tech and learn everything I can about whatever system it is. But I'm also really quick to drop it like a bad habit. And that is a bad habit, and it's been hard to overcome. So the best way I've been able to deal with that is to funnel all of that energy into setting up systems. And it's worked for me. So what are some other prepper related systems that you guys have set up that allow you to put the work in up front and then continue to, reap the rewards down the road? I mean, it could be food, it could be water, it could be fuel storage, first aid. It really doesn't. And so much of what we do as preppers is system related. Every one of those, my preparedness series is all about the systems of the home. And, those are literally stuff that is, it takes a lot of work to set up, but eventually turns into something that just basically runs itself and gives you a good return on it, except when you need to, occasionally fix a leaky pipe or a clogged septic system or something. So anyway, that's all I got for you this week, guys. If you like this, of course, hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel, or if you're listening in the audio, make sure you follow me, add me to whatever your favorite podcatcher happens to be. And introduce yourself. Send me a message on social, through email. That's therealtimcook@gmail.com or over at toolmantim.co. And as always, guys, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.